Tonight, a new threat facing Port Lincoln and a road safety operation launched to combat tragedies on regional roads.
With the latest from around the region, your nightly news with Louise Hedger begins now.
Hello everyone. The South Australian Government has today embarked on consultations for its benchmarking process at the Port Augusta prison. The CPSU claims the result of this process will be 30 job cuts. The government says the process aims to improve efficiency across the state's prison system and has been completed at the Port Lincoln prison and the Women's prison. The fallout from Port Lincoln's devastating flood has continued today, with several residents presenting to medical clinics with infections. Contaminated floodwater is being blamed for the spike in cases. Doctors are now urging anyone with symptoms to seek medical attention.
As the flood recovery effort in Port Lincoln continues, there's now a new threat. Doctors warning of a spike in infections.
I've seen some people with some skin infections. People who've been helping out in the floodwaters. So, yeah, it's a bit out there.
At least 3 cases of infection have been presented to the Lincoln Medical Centre in the past week. Practitioners say increased levels of bacteria in floodwater has caused the outbreak.
You can get some nasty bacteria that you wouldn't normally, so some skin infections would normally just improve. They often will get worse and might need antibiotics.
As floodwaters rose, the town's sewage system overflowed. Bacteria quickly spread, seeping into businesses and homes. Despite advice from authorities to steer clear, many locals took to the contaminated water for a swim or paddle.
If you feel that you're getting unwell in any way, particularly if it's to do with the gastrointestinal system, then you should contact your local doctor.
The town's stormwater mitigation system pumped more than 350 megalitres of water from the town out onto the foreshore. Concerns were initially raised the popular beach would be contaminated with high levels of E. coli.
We have taken sampling of the silt and the outfalls from our stormwater system.
Despite initial tests along the foreshore returning safe results, 6 separate sites remain cordoned off as authorities continue to collect more samples.
We're hoping to hear something back today and then we can put in place our program of how we're going to rehabilitate it.
Council says it plans to truck out sand and replace it with clean sand from another location, but one not yet confirmed.
We just want to make sure that we're not just moving around silt and sand that potentially is contaminated. We really need to work with that very carefully.
Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
A Port Lincoln motorbike rider has this morning allegedly tested positive to having methamphetamine in his system. Police pulled the driver over just after 10:30. The 58-year-old was issued with a direction to not drive for 24 hours. His sample was sent for forensic testing. 4 motorcyclists have died on South Australian roads this year. A month-long operation by South Australia Police to target dangerous driving on regional roads has kicked off today. The operation, called High Impact 5, will focus on drink and drug driving, with police also conducting large-scale driver testing. The operation, a bid to reduce the tragic number of fatalities on our roads.
Unfortunately, and the statistics reinforce the fact that we continue to see a disproportionate number of crashes and serious injuries on the regional road network compared to the metropolitan areas.
This year, there have been 10 lives lost on South Australian roads. Work on several key roundabouts and intersections in Whyalla has begun as part of Council's Black Spot upgrade. The program is an initiative which aims to improve the safety of high-risk roadways across the region.
Whyalla's notorious roundabout soon to be transformed. Cars in the left lane will now only be allowed to turn left, improving traffic flow and reducing risk of failure to give way.
We've had the Motor Accident Commission do some work around Whyalla, and they've identified 3 black spots.
Consultants were asked to carry out assessments of recent crash history and intersection detail, identifying the main causes of the black spots.
We've also had some experienced traffic engineers come in and do some on-site assessments, and that's resulted in the 2 roundabouts and 1 intersection getting some black spot funding.
This is part of Council's wider plan to make all of our roads safe in Whyalla. for motorists and pedestrians.
$300,000 has been provided by the Motor Accident Commission, ensuring Whyala's traffic management is kept up to current Australian roadway standards.
One of the roundabouts is at the Jenkins Avenue McDowell Stewart Avenue roundabout, which is commonly referred to as the Croatia roundabout. And the other one is the Westland Shopping Centre roundabout.
Council says construction on the roundabout is due to begin next month and is set to be completed early April. As for now, keep an eye out for roadworks on Hinks and Nicholson Avenue as part of the road is blocked off.
There's some tactile pavers going in, which is a bit like a rumble strip, which just helps the drivers identify that they're approaching an intersection. And there'll also be a stop sign there now instead of a give way sign.
Sophia Contagonis, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
With Port Augusta experiencing an increase in crime rates, the local Neighbourhood Watch Group is preparing to host a meeting to educate the community on preventative strategies. The group says it wants the public to keep up to date with what is going on in the town as well as how to prevent crime. The meeting will be held at 7 o'clock on Monday night at the local police station. Still to come tonight, Cummins picked to receive mental health funding and students in Port Pirie try out the latest technology to switch off at school. Welcome back. Mental health prevention and treatment in Cummins is set to receive a boost thanks to a $45,000 grant from the Faye Fuller Foundation. The town was shortlisted along with 6 other South Australian communities to receive the vital funds.
Sitting down to discuss and develop action for mental health in regional communities.
Like every community, we still have our issues and we still have ways that we could always improve and do things better.
A big boost to mental health support has arrived in Cummins after the town received a 9-month funding program.
This is all looking into innovative mental health solutions for your community. So for us in Cummins, it's not around service delivery, it's around other ways that we can implement and look after people's wellbeing.
The town initially applied through the Faye Fuller Foundation's Our Town initiative last year. Cummins, along with 6 other regional communities, were selected, each receiving $45,000 to help grow mental health support.
Some of the challenges are making sure we can capture all the voices in the community. That's something that's come up time and time again. We also know that lack of services is something that comes up.
We are a community that is always looking at well-being as a focus, and we want to make sure that we do things that have people's best interests at heart.
Out of the 6 towns, 2 will be selected later this year to receive $3 million in funding over 10 years. The Fuller Foundation has also developed a separate grant scheme to help fire-ravaged Kangaroo Island.
We are excited to be in the vying to look at that option, and it will be able to provide support and collective community responses to needs.
Representatives from each of the 6 communities will fly over to Kangaroo Island in a month's time to help format the criteria the winning town will need to achieve.
The 2 towns that get the funding at the end, it'll also be all of the towns that will create what those goalposts are that they have to try and meet.
Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
A $3,000 defibrillator has been installed at the Whyalla Bowling Club as part of an RAA regional safety grant. Club members are excited by the life-saving machine, with 10 members also taking part in CPR training.
The newest addition to the Whyalla Bowling Club, this essential piece of safety equipment has put many members at ease.
We applied for a RAA grant to get a defibrillator because of the age of our members. It was on our wish list.
After having a scary encounter with one of their own members collapsing on the ground, new safety equipment became a priority.
Members were a bit concerned that it took so long for the ambulance just to get here, so a defibrillator was definitely a must.
They now aim to have a CPR-trained member at the club at all times.
The one we brought also came with 10 packages for training, so 10 members can now train up to use it.
The club has also spent money improving the facilities, adding wheelchair-accessible doors to the bathrooms and field poles to make getting on and off the pitch easier. Every year, up to $50,000 is given out to non-profit organisations for safety equipment and upgrades.
It used to be up to a $5,000 that you could win in one hit, but now they've increased that to $10,000.
Among this year's grant recipients was the Whyalla Surf Lifesaving Club, which also received funding of just just over $5,000.
Most of the time, all the grants that you get from different organisations are metro, not very often to the country, so that's why this is regional safety grants.
Our next big project is replacement of the green, which is a $200,000 project.
Sophia Contagonis, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The empty kiosk area inside Broken Hill's local airport could soon have a new occupant. The space has been closed since July last year when the previous operator decided to move on. Since then, it's remained closed as council negotiates with prospective tenants to take over. Council staff say they hope to have an occupant in the kiosk in the coming month so passengers have somewhere to eat and drink. A number of applicants have already shown interest in using the space. John Perry Secondary School students will now have a phone-free school with new tech pouches disabling their devices. The American founders of the company say the worldwide concept will change the way Mid-North students learn.
Disconnecting to now reconnect. These students will be switching off their phones during school hours.
What Yonder aims to do is make people think about, like, oh, do I need to check my phone? It's more about, like, let me be present, let me be here now and talk with this person, because the most important person is the person in front of you right now.
Yonder, how, like, you come to school, lock your phone there, and it's locked for the whole day.
The phone pouch locks electronically but can still be carried around. It can only be unlocked by tapping on this space. It's been trialled and implemented at over 600 schools in the United States and now in Australia.
They've been using across the world at comedy shows, at Broadway shows, at festivals, and they've also been working with over 1,000 schools.
Students say many hours are spent on their phones, so they weren't initially warm to the idea.
Well, normally like 5 hours, but it might cut down to like 3-4 now.
But then soon realised it will have a positive reinforcement on their learning and socialising.
When they get in and their angry face, and then they the nods that come along with it when we do have that conversation. So that is very inspiring.
There's some future hopes for other schools across the Mid-North to follow suit.
Students are really buying into it. There's a great buzz around the yard. Lots of kids just talking, playing.
Shari Hams, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us. After the break, a local optometry clinic gives back and Indigenous artists urged to enter the Murray Ma Art Awards. Hello again. A local Port Augusta business is donating $20,000 to the community throughout the year. The owners of the optometry clinic say it's a way of giving back for all the support they've received over the years.
A big goal, 2020 for 2020. The Golf and Ranges optometrist store working to achieve clearer vision for all.
And in the world of optometry, that's a really that's our goal in life, is to have everyone in this community being able to see at their best. So 2020 vision is seeing at your best.
Also supporting the community by pledging $20,000 worth of donations throughout the year.
We hope that it's significant, and we've tried to put it in across a whole group of events across the community to try and get as maximum help as we can.
What we've tried to do is to pick a particular group and focus on them for the month.
The owners say it was a hard decision to choose who to donate to, with so many groups and organisations in town.
It was because there's so many people that do so much for the community.
This month's recipient, the Port Augusta and District's Little Athletics. A big help to get children on the road to competitions.
To purchase additional equipment to help us train children who are going off to compete at events like the State Individual Championships and the country games that are going to be held in Port Lincoln in a couple of weeks' time.
The couple says they've had their share of being involved in community groups.
It's been fantastic to make friendships of, when we've donated our time as part of community groups as well, and then again you get to make connections, and it's what part of being a great community is all about, and Port Augusta is a fantastic community.
Laura Milovanovic, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Time's running out for entries to be submitted for the annual Murray Ma Indigenous Art Awards. Organisers say the competition is a great opportunity for artists in the region to get their work up on public display.
The window is closing soon. West Darling Arts says get your work in.
It's closing on the 18th, so still got, a good week or two for people to get their entries in.
Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artists residing in the far west are being invited to enter the Marima Indigenous Art Awards. The annual event aims to showcase the work of the region's talented Indigenous artists. Every entrant that submits a piece, whether it be painting, sculpture, carving or multimedia, will be part of the showcase.
All entrants will then be on display, whereas some other art competitions, they only have finalists.
The prize money for the awards has increased this year. To celebrate 10 years of the awards, $10,000 is on offer to entrants.
The first one is $5,000, the second prize is $2,000 and the third is $1,000.
$1,000 will also be given to the winning female artist and also young artist. And better yet, unlike some art competitions, the prizes are non-acquisitive.
An acquisitive prize is a prize where the gallery will keep the work. So in a way, the prize money is almost like buying the artwork.
The winners will be announced at an opening night at the end of the month.
We have some amazing talented artists from the region, so it's definitely one to be excited about and definitely something that I'd encourage all to enter.
Patrick Reinke, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Broken Hill Squash returns to the YMCA tonight with the first round of its summer competition. 30 players will take part in the season, divided into 6 5-person teams. The local squash club says it welcomes any new players looking to have a go at a competitive level. Matches start at 6 o'clock every Thursday night. The club practices on Tuesdays. This Saturday night, a Port Augusta Football Club will host a fundraiser in its club rooms. The event, called Burning Up on the Dance Floor, will be open from 8 o'clock in the Central Augusta rooms. Proceeds will be going towards those affected by bushfires on Kangaroo Island. There will be raffles, games and a DJ. Tickets can be purchased at the door. Stay with us after the break. Broken Hill Women's Cricket hailed a major success, and we'll have the weather details with Britt. Welcome back. Broken Hill's female cricketers could soon be representing the city if the South Australian Women's Cricket Carnival goes ahead. Local league officials are hailing the first season of women's cricket in town as a big success.
With a couple of weeks still to go, the verdict is already in on the first Broken Hill women's cricket season.
I think they've become cricket addicts, so it's been very good, and I think it augurs well for the competition in years to come.
Women's cricket launched in the Silver City late last year with 4 teams, Central, West, South and North. Games have been played with indoor cricket rules, giving all players a chance to bat and bowl. Over 50 players took part in the inaugural season, huge numbers for a new competition.
The first few games, a couple of the teams had to swap players and borrow and steal, I guess, from other teams, but lately they've been able to field full sides of each team, each club, which is really, really positive.
As women's cricket grows around the country, Peter says South Australia is looking to set up a women's country carnival tournament. The success of its first season has seen Broken Hill thrown into the pool of potential teams to play.
Played over 4 days over the first week in February, aligned with the men's carnival.
Peter saying he has no doubt the city would be able to rustle up a competitive side.
We put that to our girls at the meeting, and they're keen to have a representative side participate in that.
Quite a few talented players from each team that can put bat on ball, that can bowl line and length, everything that's required.
If the SA Country Carnival idea does go ahead, the local league will look to change the format for some women's cricket games. Patrick Reinke, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Let's hear from the experts on whether fish are biting around the region with Fish and Tips.
Welcome another week around the Gulf Fishing Tips in Port Pirie. Last weekend was a little bit on the blowy side, made things a little bit difficult, but those of you who did actually try some land-based angling found that there's some yellowtail kingfish in the Port Pirie River system, so they're definitely worth having a crack. Also with land-based, if you're looking at our yellowfin whiting, all along Barras Beach, Tallowidge Beach, all that sort of stuff. You walk out to your knees and travel really well with those. Try and get yourself some small prawn baits. They're really liking that at this particular time. But also put a bit of burley out as well so you can cast towards a burley. Perhaps put a balloon on it so you can see where that burley is. We're looking at blue swimmer crabs still going absolutely great guns at the moment and nice and full right throughout. That's all we've got. We'll see you next week.
G'day and welcome to this week's Fishing Tips from Port Augusta, Jewel of the North. Well, we had that big rain earlier in the week. It's been a lot of flow coming down from the top of the Gulf. Not quite sure what that'll do for the fish for the first week, but you can certainly bet on there'll be some silver whiting starting to get around those middle banks. Possibly try up around the train bridge. There's still some kingfish up around there, but the water's going to be fairly dirty, so I'm not quite sure what's going to happen up there. A lot of salmon around up around the creeks. The crabs are a bit patchy at the moment. Some people are getting them, other people aren't. There's lots of garfish around at the moment. If you do get a nice calm night, get out and try dabbing for a few of those. There's also some Tommy Ruffs up in the mangroves. That's all we have from the Jewel of the North.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Well, the inshore fishing has been a little bit quiet since the storms last Friday, but for those with bigger boats, the offshore fishing has been pretty good. Tuna are still running well offshore at places like the Cabbage Patch. They've been reasonable sized fish around that 10 to 15 kilo, but there have been a few bigger fish around the 20 to 25 kilo mark. Down along the south coast of Port Lincoln, there have been some schools of salmon in the surf, and the best reports of whiting over the past week have been from Thistle Island and up at Louth Bay. There's also been some nice yellowfin caught off the beaches around Tumby Bay up to Port Neil. Well, that's all we've got for this week. We'll see you again with more fishing tips next week.
Time now to hear from Britt Aylan with the weather.
Thanks, Louise, and good evening. We saw sunny conditions across much of the region today, Port Augusta reaching 34 degrees, Port Pirie 33, Broken Hill 32, Whyalla 30, Port Lincoln 23. Here's a look at the satellite images with a ridge of high pressure keeping our skies clear. Moving on to tomorrow with a trough of low pressure crossing South Australia. On the Gulf waters, southerly winds tending southeasterly at 15 to 20 knots with seas around 2 metres. We'll see sunrise at 6:45 tomorrow morning with sunset just after 20 past 8. Partly cloudy conditions expected about most areas with possible showers over the mid-north and strong winds at Port Lincoln. Woodna looking at a top of 35 degrees, Port Augusta 34, Port Pirie and Kadina both 32 tomorrow, Whyalla and Corn 31, Cleve 30, Coffin Bay and Clare 29, Port Lincoln 25. Looking ahead to the weekend, strong winds expected Saturday and Sunday at Port Lincoln. Cleve sunny across the weekend with maximums in the early 30s. Woodna partly cloudy, a top of 36 degrees on Saturday. Fine and partly cloudy at Whyalla through the weekend, tops of 32 degrees. Similar conditions at Port Augusta reaching 35. Kadina sunny on Saturday, looking fine on Sunday. Port Pirie and Clare both partly cloudy across the weekend, maximums in the early 30s, and much the same at Broken Hill with a top of 30 on Saturday, Sunday 28. And Louise, that's it from me. It's back to you.
Thank you for that, Britt. And that's your local news. Thank you for joining us this Thursday. We'll have updates later. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.